Mock-ups are fantastic ways to test out your brand design on something real and tangible, especially when you want to show a client how it's going to look in real life. I teach a class where I go through the entire process of creating custom mock-ups, but in this course I'm going to move through a project just like I teach in that class, because I searched everywhere for a really good chopstick wrapper mock-up and I could not find one anywhere. And this is when knowing how to create your own custom mock-ups comes in handy, because now I have the ability to take a photograph I took myself when I did some of my sushi restaurant research. I just took this with my regular iPhone 10 camera and brought it right into Photoshop. I'm going to be able to isolate the wrapper from the background. I can also eliminate the previous brand's information on there and just have a blank sushi wrapper that I can put our own design on it. So let's go ahead and get this ready, and then we're going to be able to do our design in Illustrator and bring that into Photoshop. So first things first, I want to go ahead and unlock this layer. I want to be able to isolate this from the background. It's the only way I'm going to be able to change the wrapper color. So let's see what our little cheat select subject does for us. So just doing a quick select subject, I actually did a really good job. But we don't want to bring the shadow in with us at this time. We're going to redraw the shadow ourselves later on. So just get the polygon tool, let's do a subtraction and subtract that selection. So we're just interested in the wrapper itself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this and paste it on its own layer. So I have this own layer right here, and now I just have the background. So now what I can do is I can slide this out. I got the wrapper information. And I want to be able to draw very similar shadows myself behind it. So I can be able to make duplicate copies of this and have it cast a shadow all the way on any background I want, not just this wood background. So this is where it gets a little bit more tricky. I'm going to create a new layer, and this is going to be my shadow layer. I'm going to hand draw some shadows here right underneath this new copy that I made. I'm going to try to emulate the shadows here. So I'm going to get my soft round brush because it's a nice soft indirect lighting source. And I go over this a lot more detail in my mock-up creation course. But we're going to do a quick example here. So let me make it a little bit smaller so I can make that same shape. And let's do a black and reduce the opacity so it doesn't come on super strong. So maybe 33%. Let's see if I can't draw this. And I also want to draw it up and down the sides too, because that's going to really add a sense of realism to my shadows. And you can tell already it goes from flat to more dimensional when I start to draw the shadows. And it doesn't look like there's any shadows cast over down here because your shadows are casted to the left and not down, so you won't need to add any shadows on the right side, just on the left. But for right now, for this background, I think it works. You can't really tell which one is the real photo, which one's not. So now I can bring in my own background. And I found another texture on pexels.com, and it sure is really close to the table that I took this on. Look how close of a match that is. So I'm going to extend this out. And now what we need to do is, if you were able to find a blank chopstick wrapper, great. You don't even have to do this step. But in my case, I couldn't find one without ordering one special online. So I'm going to need to remove this previous brand's information because we don't want to have any of that on our brand. We want to do a completely new wrapper. We're just interested in the photo of the wrapper itself. So we can do some of the content-aware options in Adobe Photoshop, or we can use the clone tool if you're in Affinity Photo to slowly clone all this out. So the content-aware tool is really going to come in handy. And I'm going to do a content-aware fill. And it's going to give me a chance to find out what's the sample area. It's going to automatically fill it in for us. And it's going to take samples. The green area is where it's going to take a sample. But you notice how it has all these shadows. It's taking shadows from up here and it's replicating it and filling in that empty area. Well, we don't want to have that, so we can delete some of the shaded areas so it doesn't take that sample. So you see when I did that, it automatically removed all of that sample, so it no longer is taking those dark pixels. So we can just have a very small, we don't want to have this guy in there, so we're going to take him out. And we don't want to have these dots either, so we can remove that from the sample. So it's only going to take samples from that little sliver right over here. It doesn't have any shadows or anything to it. It's pretty close. We're going to click on OK. And it's like magic. All that is slowly disappearing. I like to do this in small little doses so I can try to take the littlest sample I can. And we could do the same thing. Go to Content Aware, Fill. And if you ever have to go and fine tune this, you can get the clone stamp tool and do this manually. So you would hold down Option or Alt and take a sample and then color over here and slowly do it. This is what we had to do before we had Content Aware Fill options. We had to do all of this manually using the clone tool, and it took forever to get all this done. And now it kind of has an algorithm that fills everything in for you, which is just fantastic. So I'm just taking as little samples as I have to. I don't want the algorithm to have to fill in anything it doesn't need to. Let's do it one last time. Content Aware Fill, and this should be pretty good right off the bat. Great. And voila, just like magic. You wouldn't even think it was there. So now we have this blank wrapper that we can color. So how do we change the color on this? We don't want it to just be white. I think we want to add a lot of different color options using our 3 different color palettes. We want to change the color here. So all these different layers were created because we did the content fill 3 times. So I'm just going to fuse this all together as one. Just going to do Command E. I'm making all of that one layer because we just need that as one layer now. So this will now be wrapper. And that's our shadow layer. So we have a shadow, a wrapper, and a background. And we don't really need the original photo anymore. So how do we change the color? Once again, in my mock-up course, I go over this in way more detail, so don't feel too lost. You can always take that class if you really want to be able to make your own custom mock-ups on any sort of thing. I want to do the rectangle tool. And I'm going to draw a rectangle tool over the area of the product. It's a simple rectangle tool. I'm going to make sure that's on the top. And we could change this color to anything. Let's try bright vivid red. And what we're going to do is we're going to do a blending mode. And this is going to be able to show the color but still have the highlights and shadows on it as well. And one that is used frequently is linear burn is one. Multiply is another. Let's go ahead and do multiply. And what we want to do is we want to be able to clip this because we don't want all this excess square part of that. So we are going to clip this to the wrapper. We're going to take this color, which is maybe call this change color here layer, and we are going to hold down Option and we're going to clip it to the wrapper. So we're going to clip it, and it's only going to be, since we isolated the wrapper, it has that shape and it's going to clip it to it. What's really neat about this is all we have to do is double click this layer, and now look at that. We can change this to any color we'd like. How cool is that? Could do like a dark gray, all these different color options. If you ever are not happy with how the color is looking, you can simply change your blending mode. Multiply is one. It depends on what product it is, what blending mode looks the best. Multiply is a big one, but also color burn if you want higher contrast. And now we can add our design. So this is the last step of this process, and we are going to do the same thing we did before. We're just going to do a rectangle tool. And we want to have stuff all the way down. And we're going to do our design here in a minute. But we want to have like a big rectangle where we can put our logo and maybe some words, something there. So we're just going to do a simple rectangle tool. And we want to make this a smart object. So as you know, smart objects allow you to scale things up and down, add items to a layer, but also be able to remove items from that layer without it being destroyed permanently. So we want to make sure this is a smart object. So we're going to do a smart object, right click, convert to smart object, this little new rectangle we drew. What's great with that is I can double click any smart object and it's going to bring it into its own window. That's the magic of smart objects. And I can bring in any kind of information here. So I can bring in our little logo that we finished. We put that down here at the bottom. It's like a little seal, or put that here at the bottom. We can remove this background color. We can have it be transparent so it adapts to whatever color is there. So we have our little logo here. What else would look really neat there? Maybe our tagline. So we have this authentically prepared goodness tagline, or just even just authentically prepared. Let's take that and let's add a text box here. And let's turn it on its side. Remember when we did the menu and we had the typography along the side vertically? We're basically sticking to our typography system, or our typographic system we developed, and we're sticking to the same method. We also have all that saved. So we have Montserrat, and we can go back to that menu example, and we have all of this set up. So now we can borrow from this. We go, okay, 7.5 points, medium, and we can even look at spacing and just kind of adapt that. This is in Adobe Illustrator, but you could do the same thing in Photoshop and have the same thing. So let's just do authentically prepared. Let's leave out the word goodness for right now. And when we look at our logo system, one that we developed to work really good on very narrow vertical spaces is this banner. So I think we can do a modified version of this and take this typography part of the logo and bring that in. And what we could do is we can quickly make this all a lighter color. Just doing a color, just a quick little conversion all to white. So we did all that. Now we can close this window and save it. And when we close the window and save it, it's going to do the smart object thing and automatically populate on there. So just like that, we were able to make this all happen. We can always double click this layer. So let's call this change graphic here. So we could double click any smart object and we can go back and modify it, maybe add more margin. We're just getting a general idea for a design. We're just to present colors. Hey, that looks pretty good. We can now modify the colors and get some color ideas, so we can always copy and paste and put either RGB, or we can copy and paste hex codes here. So if we have a color palette already there, we can copy and paste our color palette here. And we can even put all this in the same folder. So I'm taking the shadow layer, the wrapper layer, the color layer, and the smart object layer that we created. I'm selecting all four of those and making a folder, just going right down here and creating a folder group. So this is sushi or chopstick wrapper 1. We can duplicate that entire wrapper, and we can have 2 of them. And we could do it again and have 4 of them. And I'm going to provide you with this as a downloadable resource for you in the resources, where you can have this fully finished Photoshop mockup ready for you to apply your sushi wrapper design. So what we want to do is, now that we have this set up and we can start to explore colors, we can start to apply our different main color palettes.